So I've been keeping track of this Uvalde stuff. Apparently it was a transgender leftist who committed the mass shooting with a AR-15, not unlike the one I have with me right now. Although I will say one thing, they cannot pry this from my hands, as I am neither transgender nor a leftist. I am but a God-fearing, humble American engaging in the capitalist market economy, and proudly at that. Back in 2017, I had been seriously questioning my gender identity from a new framework given to me that I had been previously unaware of, that being trans ideology, or the idea that one can change genders regardless of biological sex, and that this alleviates the so-called symptoms of gender dysphoria. This had initially seemed a little wonky to me. I had been initially quite embarrassed of the idea that I might be one of these people, but I found so many of these people who seemed to claim that their lives had been immeasurably improved by engaging in these physical and social changes, who had expressed going through many of the same things that I had gone through, namely a persistent desire to be a woman as a child, or to be a girl in the case of the child, general interest in feminine toys and clothing, and a feeling of affirmation one receives from being affirmed or referred to as a woman. These were things that had been so persistent in my childhood to the point where they were neurotic. Like, as a kid, I would literally insist that I was a girl, that I had to be a girl. And when people would disagree with this idea, I would disagree with them in a quite heated way. Of course, that was trained out of me. And what had become of little trans Osaka was largely irrelevant until puberty. As a kid, like a 6-year-old, that was kind of beaten into me, and then it was puberty when I really started obsessing over this idea of I have to miraculously wake up the next day as the opposite sex. And this caused significant discomfort and distress for me at that age. What I did not predict, however, was that there would be an entire category of people who called themselves transgender, who I would end up thinking I applied to because of this after talking with some of them. And really the main issue I had ended up dealing with as a result of this was a sort of persistent obsession with modifying my body that did not improve. In fact, it got worse with the introduction of hormones, because now there was a standard that I had to follow for what womanhood was, and if I did not meet that to the T at every possible turn, I would be ostracized, violently treated in some cases. Another good reason to have one of these. Those of you who are watching this video who are not detransitioners, I just want to recommend maybe you should have one of these, but I digress. As a result of that ostracization, and those persistent threats of violence, I obsessed a lot over my appearance and my ability to pass. And what it ended up causing in me was a lot more stress than I had initially looked for. I thought I was going to alleviate the stress by transitioning. I actually just got more stress. So what's that about? And that was a problem, obviously. Ultimately, what I ended up learning was that it is always going to be more ideal to try to fit within the characteristics of your biological sex than to be something that you're literally not assigned at birth, like that you have to go through modification after modification after modification, and reject certain aspects of how you were socialized as a child as well, in efforts to disregard or to discard these immutable characteristics. Like, that's a Herculean conscious effort that you're going to be engaging in every single fucking day. And that's stressful, especially when you consider the standards that are put on you, right? I didn't want that stress. Additionally, I did not want the various side effects, which I've covered in my videos, that HRT would end up causing for me. Namely, constant panic attacks, as well as a generally unstable mood, which manifested in extreme bouts of anhedonia and generally unstable gestures that I made towards other people. All of these things were bad for me. And those around me as well, those who had to deal with the other side of it. And as a result of that, eventually I came to a decision. I said, I am not going to be led around by my emotions anymore. I'm not going to be feeling worse overall anymore because of these persistent negative feelings that the hormones are creating and that society is creating in response to me being on hormones. I said enough is enough. And what I decided was that as much as it may hurt every single day to not be a woman, in the same way that it did when I was a child, it is still better to learn to live with the pain, because at least I don't experience the same discrimination, the same constant doubt, obsessing over my appearance and who I am. Not in the same way or to the same degree. It may not be good. This whole detransition thing may not be a good way to exist. But what I came to find is that it was still a marginally better way. And that was worth something in and of itself. And maybe, just maybe, I can carve out a space here for myself as a biological male where I am happy. I don't want to give up on that at this point in my life. I would rather try more for longer and harder than give up.